right, for our Truth Teller segment today, we got two Truth Tellers with us, Amin.
Yeah.
It's a very special occasion.
I'm really excited for this one, man, because, you know, when you see something on the internet and you're like, and then you like do a little digging and it's like, yeah, that's a great point. Like, why did that happen that way? And so we get to have both the person who kind of wrote about this and really brought light to it, and we get to have someone who is an official who can break this down for us dummies, how the rule book is written and what does it actually mean.
Right. So we have Erin Grugan, who is a reporter for Liberty Ballers, the SB Nation Philadelphia 76ers site that is one of the best that you can find in the NBA sphere. So this isn't just some random person on Twitter got upset about the way the game ended. And we have over here on the other side is Don Vaden, who's decades as an NBA official, former director of officials, now part of Refology. And you're a consultant to NBA teams and players and broadcasters. Might get into that later. Don, Erin, thanks for hopping on with us.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
I want to just put the backdrop for everybody because I don't think I came to this story until like Tuesday, maybe Wednesday. But everything transpired on Sunday where the Atlanta Hawks are playing the Philadelphia 76ers, and to scene set a little bit, this is not just a random game. This outcome in this game could decide seeding down the road because as we're taping this, the 4 seed and the 9 seed in the East are separated by 1 game in the standings, and the Sixers and the Atlanta Hawks are in that mix. So it's a very contentious game, and it came down to a very controversial call. Erin, can you kind of put us in your shoes as you're watching this game on Sunday? What are the emotions as you're watching this inbounds play?
Well, describe the play first of all for the people who haven't seen it. Describe the play and then tell us.
So we're in the last few seconds of the game, and Atlanta has a 1-point lead. They are able to. They have the inbound on their side of the court. As we all know, you can inbound to the backcourt directly. They don't exactly do that. They inbound to Alexander Walker, who is cutting towards the backcourt, catches the inbound pass, takes about another step and a half, and then dribbles into the backcourt. And this is not called as a backcourt violation. In fact, the time keeps running for another second or so before VJ Edgecombe is able to grab him in the backcourt and a foul. The Sixers end up losing this game. As I'm watching it, along with seemingly everybody else on Twitter, including in the game broadcaster Ala Abdel Nabi, which we'll get to, thought this was a backcourt violation. Nick Nurse thought it was a backcourt violation, not how it was called on the court, and the game ends up with a Sixers loss. So it was a weird situation that we were very curious to see what the explanation was afterwards.
Yeah, and I don't think it's just the Ala who said that or Nick Nurse thought that. I remember seeing I think Vit Krejci, he actually on the court, the Atlanta Hawks wing, goes like this, like puts his hands on his head, like, oh no, backcourt, oh no, we just blew it, it's going to be Philly ball, and they're going to be down 1, and they're going to have a chance to go and win this. And I'm watching this, and Gediminas Petraeus, who's the crew chief, calls the foul. And I started looking this up, the crew that works that game. G, as he's known, he's a fairly young crew chief by NBA standards in the NBA refereeing crew. And then you have Ashley Moyer-Gleich, it's her first game back from a long layoff in this game. What a game to come and just kind of be back after a long time away from officiating. And then Tyler Ricks, who's in his 2nd season as the umpire. So it's a pretty young, fairly inexperienced crew here, but they had to get this right because, as you said in your tweet after the game, I don't know if it was after the game, but at 8:32, you said, Erin, can someone explain to me how this was not called a backcourt violation by the Hawks? Look at the score. You can't make the officiating mistakes here, and you have the video clip there. And I'll just point out that the NBA referee official Twitter account responded and said, hey, Erin, great question. Happy to provide some clarification here, as I know these things can be very confusing. Luckily, we have a rule book here. And in the NBA rule book, section 17, we have the explanation that you're seeking. See, in the language in the rule book, And also for our visual learners out there, here are some helpful clips for you to check out below. And look, we don't mind Alaa Abdelnaby's call on this because he's a basketball expert, not an NBA referee. So we won't take him to task on this one, especially since it was in the heat of the moment. Even the NBA coach didn't know the rule. So happy to field any questions that you have. Right.
Yeah, that's exactly how it went down. So on Monday, the day after the game, I get a notification that they quote tweeted the video and instead said, quote, "This is not a backcourt violation and has never been a backcourt violation. For those calling the game, there's a responsibility to know the NBA rules and to explain them correctly in order to properly educate the fans." At Alaa tweets directly tagging Alaa Abdelnaby, the Sixers commentator. See the below thread for more examples. So honestly, like I said, I think prior to this, we were going to see what the last 2-minute report said, which had not been out when this post was made, and just see what the explanation was. We were confused, as was everybody else. The calling out of Alaa was what made me look at it, and just the condescension of the tone of it. I was like, oh, well, this must be some obvious rule. Apparently I don't know ball and I'm about to get eviscerated because people are going to tell me, look at the rule book. So that was when I started, and I said, all right, well, let me go to the rule book because I want to see exactly where this is laying out. And when I couldn't find it, that's when I was like, there might be a little bit more to this here.
And this is where we need to point out here, Don. I looked it up in the rule book just as Erin did, and I don't see where momentum or positive positioning or any sort of direct explanation of what was going on here. And so you're the official, former director of officiating. As a media person, as a Nick Nurse or whoever, if you're feeling like I'm totally undressed here. My pants are, I totally screwed up. I'm going to go check out the rule book because obviously the rule book is going to have the answer here. I don't think the rule book has the answer in there, right?
Yeah, if you go into the rule book and you search for momentum, it has nothing to do with the backcourt. So I can see why it's confusing. In fact, this week on our weekly Zoom where we train referees throughout the country, this play was talked about, and we talked about the momentum of the play. And I started the segment with, other than a referee, everybody in the country, everybody in the world thinks this is backcourt. Yeah. So let's talk about the rule. And so we got into the high school rule, the college rule, and the pro rule. Pro rule, and I've talked to a lot of people, we're trying to decide when the rule changed that allowed the teams to throw the ball into the backcourt. And so it's going to be the late 90s, probably.
Wait, so they said this is not a backcourt violation and never has been a backcourt violation.
Well, I'll get to that shortly. But just the rule itself, when you were allowed to throw it into backcourt, you used to move it up, to the front court, just in front of the midcourt line. And then we changed it to go to the 28-foot mark at some point, which makes it a lot more difficult to inbound the ball. So the concession here was that we were going to allow them to throw it into the backcourt. So that rule was changed somewhere along the line. But with that, whenever you get referees sitting together and we start talking about rules, and part of it came up, and this would have been around 2011, 2012, because I was the boss at the time. Joe Borgia and I sat in the room, and we had to put together, because this play had happened, where there was a momentum-type play where the ball was thrown into the backcourt, which is allowed. And so we had to determine what was legal and what was not legal. And so at that point, and this is all interpretations, clarifications don't have to go to the competition committee. So through that time, and it's happened dozens of times, well, I won't say dozens of times, but quite a few times over the past since 2011 that this rule has come into effect. And so a player is allowed, if you think about how hard it is to catch the ball going in one direction and actually get stopped. And so that's when the momentum interpretation came in. Now, the referees have tried over and over to get this put in the rule book, put in the case book throughout the years, but it's never been, this is through my investigation since this has happened, there's always been a one to push forward to put it in the rule. Because this is an interpretation, it doesn't have to go in the rule book. But it would be nice that these interpretations were like made public so everybody would know. And so if you look at this play that we had the other night, his momentum is taking him into the backcourt. He catches the ball, gets 1 foot down, his second foot goes into the backcourt. So typical players, coaches, fans in general are going to say that's got to be a backcourt violation, right? Because he got possession in front court. But his momentum, even if he gets 1 foot down, 2 foot down, 3 foot down, he can still go into the backcourt if his momentum is taken that direction. So that's, again, is the interpretation. So kind of gives you a history of the timeline there. So I don't know if that helps this or not.
It does. It explains it, Don. But I do have a couple of questions. Question number one, I think a lot of people got hung up on momentum, but I think momentum is a word that is commonly used within the sport, within just typically describing something moving with velocity in a certain direction, right?
Yeah.
Positive positioning sounds like a very specific term. Mm-hmm. But like the backcourt rule itself never discusses or defines, like positive positioning is not something we would use in common parlance, either talk about basketball or anything else. Momentum is. So I can understand, like, hey, you're supposed to just kind of pick up on that. But positive positioning is the reason why positive positioning is not defined in any way.
That I don't know. When I can't tell you exactly, but I can tell you, with momentum, it talked about player going out of bounds, his momentum taking him out of bounds, or his momentum of the defender stepping underneath the shooter, that type of things was covered. Again, it has to be the good thing about this whole story, and Erin's going to be part of the history of the NBA forever. It's going to lead to something being edited in the rule book and the case book so that it's in writing and it's not just an interpretation.
So the other question I have, Don, is at what point, how much grace do we give for momentum? Meaning, if
Erin's nodding as you're
right, like how many
going
steps
through the
before
points
it's like,
on my article,
right,
so I'm loving it.
I love it. So to just be quick here, it is in the judgment of the referee. How much is this momentum, and how much is the player established in the front court, and then takes it into the back court. So that's where there is judgment involved, and of course, judgment throws it into a completely different category.
Yeah, Erin, I especially liked your write-up on this, where I think you said, wait, so by what you're saying, referee account, this is the official NBA referee union account. For those who don't know, the NBA referees are represented by a union that has an NBA official account. It is not run by the league office. They are two very separate things. So you can imagine Adam Silver's looking at this tweet from the NBA official referee account and trying to convey to the audience, like, that is actually not us. That's not the NBA. That is not Secaucus, right? That is different. And you're watching this explanation, Erin, and you're taking it to its logical conclusion and saying what?
Well, I think the wildest thing about this, and it's exactly what Don explained, was that it's the ultimate explanation is that it's a subjective call. It's an extremely subjective call, and a rule that, again, we said isn't actually laid out in any sort of fine definition. So just to come out as the official account where their bio is, I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's something encouraging communication, dialogue, and transparency with NBA fans while offering expertise from our elite group. Let's talk. That is not the attitude I got from the response, which was, that this should have been some sort of obvious thing to myself, to Ala Abdelnaby, to all the fans online. And that's, again, when we started looking in the rule book, and like Don said, it ends up, even if you go down to it, one, undefined, and two, very subjective. So just, again, incredibly bizarre situation.
Yeah, and Allah came back and he responded to the tweet, because it seems like Allah's sitting here be like, what did I thought it was a backcourt on the call. I didn't like berate the referees. I didn't say they need to lose their jobs. It seemed like it was a very, I don't know, generic, like, I thought that was a backcourt.
That's the crux of all this, is that this idea that like, how could you get that one wrong? Where it's like, it's now being, it's any explanation, even an explanation that supports the way that it was called, is like, this is clearly a very nuanced, very subjective, like you said, Aaron, type of play.
Yeah. And so Allah says, first off, thanks for the exposure. Free pub, I'm grateful. However, your post only makes us question your decision-making even more. You thought you were helping yourselves with this? Huge miss. Keep up the stellar work, and thank you for watching. Stay petty, Secaucus.
Well, man.
Like, if you want to go, we'll go. Is what Allah is saying. Like,
it's not unusual for the league to reach out to, the TV talent and tell them, get them correct on air. Like, for it to be handled the way it was, it's a little bit different to be called out, because that's usually the league's responsibility to do that
behind closed doors.
They call them directly and just say, look, here's the rule, just so we're clear. And so that way you can correct yourself on air during the game, or it could be after. That has typically covered. Here was done a little bit differently. I think in general, TV talent take pride in knowing the rules and informing the public the right thing, because it can be misleading if you give the wrong interpretation and things. And you have some talents that are definitely home. They pull for the home, and so it's one way, a lot of the commentary. But for the most part, this league is really good about educating the TV talent to give the right things. I mean, Shelley and I often will text somebody on TV of one of the teams we work with, or even someone we've worked with in the past, and give them a rule interpretation. And I wasn't seeing this at the time. I was sent this the day after, and I was like, yeah, that's the momentum rule. And then I didn't realize it was going to cause all the stuff it did. But like on our call the other day, it was fun to put it out there, because we have high school refs, college refs, we have men's, women's, FIBA, we cover everything. And basically the rule is kind of the same. And I thought it was going to be backcourting everywhere, but it's not. There's a nuance to it, and that's maybe for another call. But as far as the NBA, again, it's an interpretation, it's a clarification. And I think this is going to bring about some type of change, not changing the rule. I think the rule is going to stay the same. And there's other nuances to the rule. Like if you throw the ball you advance it to the front court, or you put the ball in play in the front court. Let's say it's a baseline throw in. It could happen there in the last 2 minutes. And the ball is inbound and it's thrown toward the back court. And I go up to catch it, and I'm in the front court and it tips off my hand. I'm allowed to go into the back court and recover that ball, because I didn't cause it to go back there. The ball was already in that direction. However, if I'm at the 28-foot mark and I throw the ball forward toward the free throw line, and my teammate is coming to it and it hits off of his hand or her hand and causes it to go into the backcourt, I cannot be the first to catch it, because the ball was thrown forward. It's like how many of you saw the 2-point conversion last night in the Seattle game? Okay. That ball was thrown forward. Right. If it's thrown backwards, then it's a completely different rule.
Well, that's what got me, Don, is it seemed like a great opportunity for the NBA official ref account to cite very similar plays. Mm-hmm. But it didn't seem like they cited similar plays, right, Aaron? Like when you watch the plays that they cited, you're like, wait a minute, these don't really apply to what we're talking about here.
Well, yeah. So that was the other strange thing, is that it says, see the thread below for more examples, plural. So I was expecting to see, okay, I'm about to get beat to death with, here's this play 12 times and you have this wrong. Not exactly what it came out to be. What it actually linked back to was just a text-based tweet from April 25th. And that goes back to that playoff game between the Knicks and Pistons that Don alluded to earlier. This is a explanation saying that they called a play with the momentum rule that is not in the rule book, based on this rule that if it's in the last 2 minutes of the fourth quarter or OT and the momentum takes them into the backcourt, it's not a backcourt violation. Now, there's no video attached here. I actually had to go look for the play. The play from the Knicks game is a little bit closer to where I understand that subjectivity, because Jalen Brunson catches an inbound pass and he has 1 foot on the backcourt line. The ball is basically hovering over the backcourt line and he goes into the backcourt with it. That to me is a lot different than somebody catching a ball at their chest in the front court with the left foot down, stepping with the right foot, and then going into the backcourt. That's where the subjectivity of this momentum, what's momentum versus I'm running in that direction? That's a whole different question that I brought up. But both of these plays, they trace back just to a play where it is the
Domantas Sabonis.
Yes. A ball, not in the last 2 minutes of the game. It's at the end of the second quarter. And the ball is tipped away from a defender into the backcourt. He goes and gets it, takes half a step into the backcourt, going horizontally along it, not directly across it, just kind of takes half a step backwards, and brings it back into the front court, and it's not called a backcourt violation. To me, I don't understand how this is a reference to either the play in the Knicks-Pistons game or the Sixers game, but it was used as a reference for both. It's the only video in the thread, which only made me more confused, which again is why I said, okay, I am obviously missing something here. I need to dig into the rules. And that's where my confusion on the terms kind of came up.
I think the play that we had the other night in the Philly game is the furthest I've ever seen a player take that step. It's almost like he knew the rule. And I doubt if he did, but I think it was that type of play where he gets his first foot down and his second step is way long to reach forward to make sure it's in the backcourt. And again, I'm not sure he actually knew that, but it was really a hell of a move on his part.
Well, it's funny you say that, Don, because some of the responses I got were, okay, well, now if I know this going forward and I am trying to avoid being fouled and run out the clock, I'm taking that pass, getting it as close into the front court as I can, just taking it really quick, and I'm running the other way. And I'm running out into the backcourt and avoiding that foul because by the subjectivity of that, and you said earlier, it can be 2 steps, it could be 3 steps, it could be this or that. I'm taking that pass from the inbound and I'm running in the opposite direction to dodge that foul and hopefully run out the clock and win the game.
Yeah. Or it could change the team and quit throwing the ball at midcourt like that because it puts them in such a tough position to start with. Throw it into the backcourt. So,
Don, I got a question for you. Had that call been called a backcourt violation, do you think that would have been an inaccurate call? I see the justification of why it was the correct call, but had it been the other way around, had they called it or reversed it or whatever, would you have thought, oh man, you guys got that one wrong?
Yes, it would, and it would be in the last 2-minute report that this was an incorrect call because the momentum of the offensive players allows him to go into the backcourt.
All right. Now, you said earlier one of the tough things is getting it written in paper. It's an interpretation thing for now, but you guys have been fighting to get it into the written rule book. Who are you fighting against when that happens? I mean, what are the powers that be, and what is the justification on the other side of the argument? Say, no, we're not going to write that one down. You guys just interpret it.
Like, I don't think it's ever been that important. That's the reason why I think Erin's play and the way this is being handled will bring light to it. It has to go through the competition committee, and they have to okay it because it's now becoming part of the rule and no longer an interpretation or clarification. Therefore, there's a lot of steps to go through to get it in, and this would have to be done probably during the off season. It would have to be a priority. Usually, as we used to say, if it happens in Game 7 of the NBA Finals, then it will cause a change in the rule. And so there's a couple of rules that are obscure over the years. The basket interference, the ball, on the rim or the ball above the rim and in the cylinder type thing has always been that way. But this one has always been a concern. And as I said, the referees have always pushed to try to get something in the rule book, and it just never has made it.
So I should say that Bob Rathbun, he's one of the best play-by-play guys in the league and most tenured and knowledgeable commentators we have in the NBA. And it just so happens he is working for the Atlanta Hawks on this play, and the referee union took the liberty to send out a video clip of him getting this play right in real time, or at least the interpretation that the NBA referees were using in that momentum. If you establish, your foot on the front court, but your momentum carries into the back court, it's a legal play. Don, I feel like there's a disconnect here that the NBA official referee tweets are like, they're yelling, they're torching Allah for not knowing this, but yet there's so many people who did not know this rule, and they're using Bob, who, bless him, he studies this stuff so much, and I think he would be in the minority of people in real time, commentators getting this right, because you're seeing people from both teams not really understanding this rule. So, Don, your job is to educate and to consult with people like Bob and referees and writers, etc. This seems like a pretty harsh tack by the NBA referee union to go after Allah on this one.
Well, I'm going to take a little bit of credit for Bob, because Shelley and I worked with Bob through Refology for a number of years. So he is the first to pick up the phone and call us about a rule. He has been on our Zoom meetings. He's been a guest. He is always priority of knowing the rules so he can educate the public. So he didn't even blink an eye the other night on the telecast by just saying, "Oh, well, Nick, this could be actually the momentum rule, where he's allowed to take the ball into the backcourt in the last 2 minutes of the fourth, the last 2 minutes of overtime." So it was a proud moment for us to know that somebody listened to us through the past. But again, Erin's thing has really brought light to this needs to be covered. So the referees are covered. By the rule, the referees are not covered.
Yeah.
Okay, because it's not in the rule book. It's not stated that way anywhere, but through interpretations and clarity, they are, but that doesn't help when it comes to, if this game was protested, let's say there was a protest on this game and you had to go back to a rule base, because most protests around rules, there's really nothing there, because as all you know, and what I did is I went through and I've called a lot of people and talked to them about it. It's not really mentioned in the rule book in any way.
I think that's what ultimately ended up kind of being my main issue personally with the response. One, I think calling out a broadcaster with that sort of tone publicly, pick up the phone, talk to them, email them. If you're all supposed to be, on the same team here of producing this product of basketball, I don't think there's any need for that. I didn't think he was exactly scathing either. And I'll be the first to admit, I watch obviously every Sixers game. Allah is absolutely a Sixers homer. But for every time they say, that the Sixers should have got a call, they are, him as well as Kate Scott, are the first to usually admit when the Sixers get away with one. When you see the replay on a no call and you go, okay, whatever, we'll take it. But the second tweet that they made that credits Bob Rathbun, which no shade to him at all, good for him for knowing, takes kind of another shot at him, at Allah, for not knowing, by saying, because media voice shape how fans understand the game, which is why accuracy matters. Accurate rules knowledge serves everyone. If you're going to take that sort of shot at somebody publicly, I think this is a weird time to do it when you don't have a screenshot of a rule book to say, here's the exact language we went on. And it's his responsibility, or my responsibility as a reporter, or the fan's responsibility to somehow know something that's not actually in writing. And that's why you see even the majority of the responses to that second post by the NBA referee account on this is saying, okay, this is fine. I'm not even saying the call is wrong anymore. Can you just point to where in the rule book we are supposed to know this, or anybody else is supposed to understand this? The other thing about that second post that got me was they said the momentum and positive position language of the backcourt rule has been referred to as, quote, obscure several times over the past 24 hours, implying that they don't think it's obscure. And the next sentence starts, although not a play seen often.
Yeah.
So I think it's a multifaceted issue where it is no longer about I don't know if it's a backcourt violation. I think it could have been called either way at this point now that I understand the the subjectivity, of the rule, and been understandably correct or incorrect based on your opinion. But just the way that this was handled, this specific rule that doesn't have it in writing, I think it was just a bizarre time to take this level of tone.
Yeah, I was gonna say the big thing for me is that was the first thing I thought about, Erin, when you said it. Is just Allah's not a homer. Yeah. Like he's like if we had a spectrum of like from Tommy Heinsohn to like like Allah's actually like one of the most level-headed kind of very very middle of the road, I would say, when it comes to calling the game. So that's the part that shocked me.
Erin, when you post this, what has been the response both in Sixers media and nationally? Did you expect to get swept up like this?
No, I really didn't, because it's funny. Like I said before, Monday we were waiting for the last 2-minute report. We were very curious just to see what rule they cited and just what the explanation for the call was. But the post from the NBA referees account comes out and the last 2-minute report isn't out yet. So I'm like, okay, this is really interesting. So that's when we started digging into it. And the response has been, overwhelmingly supportive in that there needs to be just some sort of definition of the rule. It's not even people yelling, oh, this shouldn't be a backcourt violation, or it should. Some people have their opinions on that. But it's about the subjectivity of momentum. The fact that momentum does not appear in this rule, in the rule book, it is referred to as positive position, which also is undefined. It's been overwhelmingly supportive in that this is kind of just drawing a light on an issue where especially in the age of sports gambling and betting scandals, the rules and the officiating of the NBA, as well as every league, needs to be as transparent and clear as humanly possible. And it doesn't, and I'm clearly not the only one that thinks that this is a symptom of a larger issue where that's just not the case right now.
Don, how would you have handled this?
The league would have called, and not the union. And for the union to do it, they have. With social media these days, anybody can send anything to anybody. So I'm not saying they shouldn't do it. I'm just saying the tone of it should have been a lot different and in an education way instead of the way it was handled. That's all. And then again, it's the league's responsibility to let someone know that they got a rule wrong or explain to them the rule. It happens all the time. I'd say if you polled 100 TV people, somewhere between 90 and 95 wouldn't know that rule.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's not like he's the only one that didn't know it. And the great thing about this is, again, as I said before, this is an education part that takes throughout the league. It may update the rule book, number one. It educates everybody else. It's just not just Bob getting it right. It's now everybody can get it right, talk about it. But again, it's still going to be some judgment involved in these plays. Did it actually, did the momentum of the player going to get the ball carry him into the backcourt? Was the ball thrown into the backcourt? We know if it's tipped by the defender, anybody can go get it, into the backcourt. But once there's positive possession, and again, positive possession, you would say, looking at this play, okay, he's got the ball and he has his foot on the floor. That's positive possession. But momentum is a funny thing, and it's interpretation can be a lot of different interpretations.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's funny because I think a lot about the gather rule and how like maybe 2 years ago people were going nuts like that's a travel. And now it seems like more people are understanding, well, not until he gathers the ball, and then he's got 2 steps after that. And I think because of that, because just kind of continuing to talk about it, not in a condescending way, we've arrived at a place where some people, I know one of my buddies is Gabe Goodwin, who's a producer, And he sends me these clips all the time. He's like, "You tell me that's not a travel. You tell me that's not a travel." And I always screenshot like just the moments, like right here. That's where the steps start. Game. Everything before that, he still hasn't gathered. So I just think, one of the things, and we've talked about it, is accepting some of these things are a little complicated. And actually, one thing, Don, you told us, we said you got together with your group of refs that you're training and said, to us, it's clear this is the momentum rule. But I guarantee you to everyone else, it was like, oh, that's a backcourt. And just understanding that, like having that level of nuance and self-awareness of knowing, look, the rule's the rule and that's fine. But some of these plays to the naked eye and to the untrained eye may not appear that way. And then the second part is what Erin was talking about. Show us the part of the rule book that you're talking about that we've overlooked, and show us if you can add a video example, that's even better. But in the education part, I think of it is, and it sucks because referees, you guys catch all the shit all the time, right? Yeah, I like. There's a part of me that understands why the reaction, because it's like if you have to hear this shit all the time, you get snarky in it, right? But there is a kind of a demand for patience with all of us dummies with a microphone or a camera in front of us, or a written piece, and so I don't know how often you guys. Yeah, but like
they're trying to build trust with the community, especially in the sports gambling and all this. You want to build trust with the audience so that when things like this come up, you can be like, you know what? I trust that they're all about the right things and they're about education. But Erin, I don't think you feel more confident in the NBA referees after your interaction and your experience in this, right? Like based on their response.
Yeah, I mean, that's I think the main problem is if they had come out on Monday afternoon, even before the last 2-minute report, even with the same videos that, are kind of applicable, but not really, and said, okay, we're seeing a lot of responses to this. It is a subjective thing. Momentum obviously is not clearly defined in the rule book because it is subjective and up to the judgment of the refs. It's not a play seen often, which is something they say later on. And just say, we want to explain this because we're seeing a lot of questions about it, even on broadcasts. And it's fair because it's not a play that is brought up often and it's not in the rule book. If you say something like that, I think the question still arises of why it's not clearly defined in the rule book, but the response isn't nearly as volatile across social media like we saw. But it was just that sort of tone of talking down, like you should understand this rule that's not in the book.
It's an unwritten rule, Erin. It's an unwritten rule. It's not written in the rule book.
An unwritten rule that is even admittedly even when you put it into a sentence of, positive positioning, or you replace that with momentum carries him into the backcourt, there's follow-up questions and understandable ones. I don't think it's unreasonable for me as a reporter or a fan or a broadcaster to ask, okay, momentum because the ball is going into the backcourt and I'm trying to grab it and save it is one thing. It's another thing that if momentum is me catching the ball and then taking it that direction. I think there's a lot of questions that can be asked about this specific rule. But it really just became not about this play anymore. And it became about their response to it and how they are talking down to broadcasters and fans and media members and saying that you should understand something that's not written down. And I'm sure this is not, as Don said, the only thing that is not clearly defined in the rule book. It just happened to come up in a very crucial moment of a game, so it got noticed. But I think that's a symptom of a larger problem.
Yeah, I think I'd like to think that this is going to be over, Erin, and we're not going to hear about this again. But like I said at the top, this is a huge play that could decide a lot going forward.
Oh, absolutely. The Eastern Conference is, like you said, it's going to end up being decided. Massive amounts of seeds are going to be decided by single games, I'm going to say a handful of games between the 3rd seed and the 11th seed by the end of the season. I would not be surprised with the way the East is going. it shouldn't take something like that to raise the awareness, but I think it's a good thing that it does, because, maybe you don't have this happen in the playoffs again. I'm surprised that there wasn't more discussion after watching the Knicks and Pistons play, which I admittedly did not remember. But again, that one at least was a little bit closer, where it's Brunson's momentum of him trying to catch the ball in the air takes him over the line. Just a lot of lack of clarity and transparency, which I think is the exact opposite thing the NBA needs right now.
Erin, if this, as Don said, this kind of whole thing leads to it getting put into print, would you want it? What would you want the unofficial name of this to be? Would you want it to be Erin's rule, or would you want to be the Grugan interpretation? What would you want it to be named?
I don't want to read the rule book anymore. No, I'm just kidding. But it is so funny because I went through the rule book and I was using the search terms and I was trying to find it. And I'm like, okay, now I'm asking other people, is the online rule book the full rule book? Like, is there a full rule book somewhere that I'm not getting, where they have this rule and they're going to get me with it? Here. Yeah, exactly.
That'd be great if you're like, hey, you haven't checked the secret rule book, Erin.
PDF that's actually 7,000 pages. Yeah. That's what I was expecting. So it's like, this has to be somewhere. There's no way it's not somewhere. No, I would just like it to be a little bit more clearly defined. If it does end up in print, maybe I'll frame it and put it on my desk, something like that. But I hope to see it, like Don said, enter those conversations, because it is a larger issue.
No, it's look, again, I think if it's the Erin rule, the Grugan rule, whatever it ends up being, I think it's important to know that this all kind of had a big play in changing, at least putting it in print. Back when we started grading plays at the league to give, to make sure the referees were accurate, we had to go in and redefine the gather. We had to redefine what was legal on screening, verticality, all those things. Shelley was she helped me.
Shelley Rusty you're talking about.
Yeah, Shelley Rusty with refology. We sat down, we went through the rule book, and we had to redefine, because referees had to be supported by the rule. And so when we talked about firming up, not delivering contact on screens, gather could be hand underneath, two hands on the ball, a cradle, all those things ended the dribble. Whereas college now, they have continuous motion is a big thing now, and they talk about
like momentum.
Yeah. So when does the dribble end? They don't use gather, but when does it end? So there's so many different things. I think for referees today, when you start out and there's so many rule differences, it's hard enough to referee games and call fouls and violations, but when you have a different rule set, the confusion it causes with the regular fans. I don't care if it's CYO in Oakland or if it's or Walnut Creek or wherever we're doing our CYO stuff, to college basketball, to FIBA, to NBA. The rules should be the same or as close to the same as possible, and not have all these nuances that confuse everybody.
I feel like, Don, the referees should want it in the rule book, right? So that they don't have to deal with this BS.
I was just going to say the same thing, that it benefits them as well, because, for better or worse, this game was in Atlanta. If they make that call in Philadelphia, I can't imagine what the fan reaction would have been. It's a benefit to the referees to be able to say, no, here's the exact rule. And I understand that it's obscure and that it's understandable. Fans don't know it, but this is why I called this the way I did. And then everybody could go, oh, all right. So we're the dummies. That's fine. Whatever, and move on.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Well, at the very least, Erin, now you have Don's contact information. So next time something like this comes up, you can reach out to Don for any clarification.
Oh, I appreciate it. Anything that saves me from searing my eyes looking into this rule book, reading every word, just in case the search isn't working. No, I appreciate it, because I think that's what most of us want as reporters, as broadcasters, as fans. We just want to know why things get called the way they do. It's just about the education of it, for sure.
Yeah, that's the refology hotline. It's always open.
Yeah, for those who are listening, he is wearing a Refology shirt, which you can watch on YouTube. By the way, anyone listening to this, you can watch our show on YouTube. Don, Erin, that was really fun. Thanks for doing this. And I feel like I've got a PhD in momentum and positive position.
You'll never forget those terms now. Trust me.
That's right. Liberty Ballers. You can find Erin's work at Liberty Ballers and also Erin Grugan on X, ErinGrugan. And Don Vaden from Refology. Thanks so much, Don.
You got it.